So last week, I had a PowerPoint that just introduced what international correspondence is. So if you want to refer to that video first, just to kind of gain an understanding, but I don't want to repeat myself too much because I want to focus on the actual project itself with this lecture so that we have a little bit more time with it. So this PowerPoint is available for you all to download if you want to go into the first half of the lecture from last week. But let me hop over to part of the project. So let's talk about the International Correspondence Letter Project. So think about, for the project, you will represent any U.S. organization. It doesn't have to be local to where you live if you don't want to. Remember that organizations are businesses, those that sell products or services to make profit. Schools, meaning K through 12, or universities, public or private. Community colleges, private schools, public schools, whatever you can think of. Nonprofits are always interesting, and I like to leave that option. Those are organizations funded usually by grants. Their goal is to help communities, certain issues within the community. Medical setting, I think we have a lot of majors here who are interested in the medical field in general, so this could be a chance to kind of exercise that practice that you want to go into. Hospitals, clinics, whatever you're thinking of, or still a medical setting if you wanted to represent a doctor's office, or any type of office setting. Lawyer's firm, I've had people who wanted to go to law school, so they kind of practice working for a firm or their own office, accountant's office, whatever you want. Research lab, I have a few students who have interest in medical research, so research in general, usually in the medical setting, but it can be psychology related too, and which is also could be a branch of medical as well. Evaluates data akin to health and wellness, but doesn't have to be. There's research for everything. So the objective we've learned of the project is you're going to write a letter to a representative or representatives in another country that sets a plan for them when they visit you, your own organization in the U.S. So you need to evaluate your audience. They are foreign representatives. This helps craft your purpose a little bit. And we're going to learn letter format this week as well. So thinking about the topic for the project, you are in charge of an organization. We're putting you in that rhetorical situation where you run an organization of your choice. So you got to think about that a little bit. You got to give yourself a title. And what I mean by title is, are you CEO? Are you the founder? Are you a registered nurse? Professor? Evil mastermind? I always pick kind of silly topics too, because keep in mind, yes, this class is here to help you if you want to start practicing ideas for your major related to your professional career goals. But if you want to break from that, I always have one or two students who want to do a little bit more of a creative take on these types of projects. So there's always a way around it. You still learn professional writing regardless. You will soon meet with representatives from another country of either the exact same organization. This is probably more common if you're working for a company. Sometimes we see companies across borders. Or if not, what could happen too is just one that is very similar to your organization. Same type of organization, meaning you wouldn't represent a hospital and then send this letter to an accountant's office. So you want something exactly the same field. Why do we want it the same? Well, because this can help you have a clearer topic for one. For example, if you were a speech therapist at a medical clinic in San Diego and wanted to help children in a third world country, you would need to be in contact with a similar clinic. It probably wouldn't be the exact same clinic, but you would be in contact with a similar clinic of that country to form that professional relationship and plan for future work, because you both have a goal, an objective of helping people with certain areas of speech. If you owned an antique shop in New York City and wanted to collaborate with a similar, maybe it's probably not the exact same antique shop because those are usually locally owned, right? So it's not some corporation who buys them out. So you want to collaborate maybe with a similar local antique shop in another city in London. You could host their shop owners to an event to discuss future inventory. These people are traveling to the U.S. to meet you at your organization. You're hosting them. So you are sending this letter in regards to this future meeting. So what to include, the guidelines went over this, but I just like to have a video lecture just to really voice it too, because this is how I would be in a face-to-face class. I'd have a lecture over it. So make sure you include all of the following in this letter. You need a travel plan. What should include in that is, what should these representatives expect when they arrive? Share a travel plan that details when they leave the airport in their country, arrive to the U.S., the hotel they'll stay at, and the departure back home. So you need an important detail here, meaning the dates, when are they staying and how long? What are the airport names, time of arrival and departure, and hotel names? So activities, what is the plan when they visit your organization? Share at least 5 different activities you'll have planned and list them in order. If the country's communication style is direct, march each event by a time to stay organized. If that country's communication style is indirect, keep a wider time range open. I'm going fast here because I have slides that are going to break down these sections in a little bit more detail. Last, you need an organization background where you summarize your organization a little bit more. So let's go into this whole letter, all of the sections here in more detail. So let's first talk about the travel plan. So a travel plan shows your audience that you are organized and have helped set an itinerary for their arrival. You're going to include the following. What is the name of the airport they are leaving from? Meaning the name of the airport in their city, country. So think of a main city if it helps in that country. That's usually, where airports, you want something where they're leaving from, basically. So what is the name of the airport? You got to do a little search on Google to find that out. When are they leaving? Have a date. What is the name of the airport they are arriving in? Meaning the location, the city location of your organization. When are they arriving? What is a hotel that is nearby your organization? So do a little research there and look for nearby hotels. Include the name of the hotel and how long they'll stay. So that's overall, I'm jumping too fast. That is overall the travel plan, all those details and more. Activities. The main goal is to host foreign representatives at your organization, right? So we need to plan activities for them. Otherwise, it looks unorganized and it's a little stressful for you because you're the host. So you want to have a clear plan. A plan for plus we're practicing. We live in the U.S., so we have a more direct approach to things overall in communication. So people tend to have a plan, a clear plan more here with organizations. A plan for activities helps them prepare before they arrive, meaning helps your audience prepare a little bit if they need to before they arrive, and also proves that you are an organized person in charge. So you want to include all of the following for this part. So just be careful with little detail here. Share at least 5 different activities you'll have planned. That gives you a little bit more incentive to come up with something. And again, it just gives that well-driven plan. List them. Whenever you have, in business writing, whenever you have numbers that you're listing, you use bullet points, basically. Be creative here. You don't need any research for this. If you ran this organization, what would you do? What would your activities be? This kind of pushes you a little bit, right? Where you have to really think in that rhetorical situation. Okay, if I'm an accountant, and I'm hosting people from another country, what do we do on a daily basis? Why do we need to do this? What activities would we have planned? Activities can be anything from just meetings. I wouldn't do all meetings. That's too much. To observation, to some kind of social event could be something as well. Whatever you want to call it. But give each activity some type of name, meeting, workshop, event, but not even event. Event's kind of vague. Restaurant incorporation, I don't know, something, and explain it in a few sentences too, because that would be really random if you just said meeting. Okay, second activity is observation. Okay, third, it's a little vague, right? Your audience will think, okay, what's this meeting and observation about? So here's an example just to kind of give you some perspective. An activity at a medical clinic could be a workshop on modern speech therapy approaches that help children with autism. It's a little bit more specific. I know it's a workshop, that's the event, and what's the event going to cover? I said that in a sentence, so you can see, just a little 2 to 3 sentences that summarize. Another example, an activity at an antique store could be a fashion runway event. So I didn't just say event, right? I said fashion runway event to invest in future products. Maybe you work together and collaborate and get the inventory for the year through this fashion event. Note, consider spreading the activities out so they aren't all in one day. It would be pretty exhausting to have a fashion runway event, to have a meeting, to have lunch, and then to, all in one day. That's a lot. So just break it up a little bit as well. Very important. If that country's communication style is direct, so make sure you look at the files on direct versus indirect communication. That's very important because that guides your purpose a little bit more in what you need to include for some of the detail. If that country's communication style is direct, we saw last week overall, just in summary, that Western countries tend to be direct style. So I had that link about that. Mark, if they are under that direct style, you need to mark each event by a time because it's very strict to the schedule. So have an exact time of day and time to stay organized. Example, on Monday, February 20th, 2021 at 2 p.m., the runway event will start. We have that exact day and time even more. So if the country's communication style is indirect, it doesn't mean to not put anything. You still can include detail, but be a little bit more lenient with time range so the audience doesn't feel pressured. We learned last week that Eastern countries overall tend to be indirect, so we had the link there. An example, we still want a date, right? That we have to include some kind of date. Monday, February 20th, the afternoon. So notice how it shifted from 2 to afternoon. We'll focus on a workshop hosted by our speech therapy team. We're not pressured with time as much. So that's the activities. Oh no, I'm going too fast. What's going on? So when we think about organization background, that is after the activities. In this paragraph, think about what do foreign representatives need to know about your organization before they arrive? What do they need to know about you, especially, if it's a slightly different organization or even if it's exactly the same. It's not run 100% exactly the same. So you want to briefly, we don't need a lot of summary here. We want to briefly summarize the background of your organization, meaning how long has it been in operation, how many locations it has, maybe in the U.S. if that helps, or worldwide if you want to branch out and include that. How many people work there at your specific location? What are other job titles there? Just to kind of get an understanding so that it might be a little different. This is also a way for you to consider me because I'm not your primary audience. I'm your secondary audience. So I learn a little bit more about this organization. So when you consider audience, again, your primary audience, the representative or representatives of the organization in the other country. So be very aware of common communication practices there. Use those links I provided on Canvas. If you can't find them, send me an email. There was that one website that was really great, and it had a link where you clicked the country and then you clicked communication practices. It helps, how you address someone, what expressions to use, greetings. If you can't find that, let me know. If you need help, let me know. I always just do Google searches too, communication practices in Greece, something like that, so you can kind of learn a little bit more. Consider what greetings, tones, detail, meaning indirect versus direct, and respectful openings and closings should be used. Regardless, research the following. How this culture expects to be addressed. Do they go by sir, Mr., doctor, regardless if it's a higher up, or not higher up, but if they've received the education. What direction language script is read, so you know where to place your organization. What I mean by that is if, for example, in English, we read left to right, but other languages might read right to left. So if we read left to right, we start on the left. So you want to put the logo on the left, the top left corner. If we read right to left, you would put it in the top right corner because you don't want it to be confusing for the audience. So simple Google search of the direction of the language. What language is spoken there? What direction? Practice concise writing here. We're learning about concise writing just a little bit in this unit. So review the files on that just to make sure you can begin to practice concise writing. Most importantly, find out if this country is direct or indirect communication. They are direct, get to the point of the letter. So start with the travel plan. If it is indirect, open with a brief paragraph that wishes them well, considers their well-being, ask about family, questions, how they are, etc. Anything to kind of add a sense of introductions first. And then when we consider design, we're learning about letter format. To review the sample on Canvas as a guide, use that sample. It is there for you for the template. That sample explains what a letterhead is. Start with some type of salutation. Usually dear is good, dear. And then if you may not, if you do a search on this organization and it's a well-known organization where you can find a top person in charge, then just put their name. But you can just make up the name if you want to. But just think of titles. What does somebody in charge of that organization go by anyways? So you can just get an idea for title. Again, if it's Sir, Mr., Doctor, Professor, doctor, I said doctor, nurse, whatever you think. If you find a real person online, like I said, put their name. Make sure you include a title if that's appropriate. And then end with a closing, meaning sincerely, because it is a letter. We want to think about design. Below sincerely include your full name and what your job title is that you decided on. Very important advice for design that we're learning about. Whenever you list information, like I'm doing here in this PowerPoint, use bullet points. For example, your travel plan and schedule of events will look better if you list them in bullet points. Schedule of events meaning activities, the 5 activities. Definitely complete this project on either Microsoft Word or Google Docs only because it's a letter. Reach out to me if you need ideas for this project. It's open topic and you have your topic proposals, but you can represent anything you want. If you want to change from what you had last week, it's fine. Just let me know. It's always better to choose a real organization that already exists, but if you make one up, everything else should be real. Try to find an organization that's similar in the other country, a real city, obviously, in the U.S. that they're traveling to and things like that. Make sure you've reviewed my feedback on your topic proposals before you begin. And that should be it. So let me know if y'all have any questions about that.